Yay, streaming on Facebook.
Okay, seeing it all.
Let's see.
Is it
You're
on?
live.
Yay, we're live. We're
Yay,
live.
it
Thank
worked.
you, everyone. Yeah, thank you for your patience, everyone. I know it's almost 7:15 and Facebook was having its way tonight, but we battled through, Aimee and I, and
That's
here
right.
we are. So I'm so excited to see everyone again tonight. We are on book tour stop number 3 with Aimee Juarez. She is the owner of Soul Brand Design. She is my personal graphic designer, and I just adore her. And so she built my website for me. So when you see how beautiful that is and how beautiful my logo is, that is all Aimee. And
Thanks, Donna.
oh, you're welcome. You know how much I love your work. And Aimee is really a branding specialist for heart-centered entrepreneurs. And she has taught me so much about living my brand and embodying my brand. And the process gave me so much clarity for my own business. And actually, when Aimee and I finally landed on a logo, I said to her, I didn't know I was going to have a relationship with my logo.
I love that so much, by the way.
I do too. It's just so true. It was just this experience I never expected to have, where it was informing me about my direction and it was representing me in my direction at the same time. So I wanted to invite you on the Wise Leader Tour because I admire what you do so much, and you do it with such grace.
Thank you.
And yeah, and Aimee has a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old at home while she's working a business out of the home, and her kids are e-learning. So if that's not wise leadership, I don't know what is.
Yeah. I think the wisest thing I did this summer was hire a babysitter.
Right? You know,
Yeah.
it's that saying no in order to say yes, right? And it's like putting those limits and boundaries. And I totally think that's wise leadership, because how many women hate to ask for help. We don't ask for help because we're the helpers. We're always giving it and caregiving. And part of wise leadership is setting boundaries, saying no to things, so that you can say yes to what you really want.
Yeah. It's been interesting because I really have learned new areas through the process of hiring a babysitter. We've never done that before. And, for a long time, our 7-year-old was in traditional school. So she was out of the home, and the little one would either go to like preschool, or she'd be hanging out with grandma and grandpa or something like that. And now with everybody home, we have to make an adjustment there. But I've realized that some of wise leadership, and what you're saying is so true, that like we are the caregivers. It's hard for us to delegate the caregiving. And I never really thought of myself that way until I hired this babysitter. And she'd say, hey, where's the whatever it is, the cereal box, or the, she's like learning our home and everything. And I'd be like, oh, let me get it for you. And I would just get up from my desk and walk to the kitchen and open the cabinet, instead of just being like, it's on the cabinet above the sink on the far right. Done. Like, well, she'd be like, I can do that. I'm like, oh, right. Okay. Yes. That's what you're here for. Like, it's just so built into us. It's hard to let go of that.
It is for sure. That is a big thing that I work on with my coaching clients, is delegation. It's huge because, the people I work with are high achievers. They're, corporate people, director level and above, or they're business owners with successful businesses. And so many times they're still trying to do everything. And especially the women, they still feel like they have to clean the house and make dinner and all this other stuff. And there's nothing wrong with delegating at work and delegating at home. And that's how you survive without burning out.
Yeah. Yep. It's so true. Yeah, that's really, really true.
Yeah. I think wise leadership includes, protecting your energy and
Mhm.
for someone like you, especially protecting your creativity. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to learn. Part of what I can feel myself like needing to find a new level of that is protecting my creativity, is that I can feel myself energetically shifting through the day. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to pay closer attention to what time of day is it when I feel the most motivated to be creative and to get this certain kinds of work done,
Yeah.
because I can feel a lot more angst inside of me if I'm in, and let me give this disclaimer that I truly believe that we are whole people first before we are like Aimee the mom, Aimee the business owner, Aimee the sister, whatever, whatever.
Hmm.
However, there are hats that I have to take on and off, especially because we're all here during the day. So there are times when I use the phrase like I'm on mom mode. Really,
Hmm.
I'm always on mom mode first, but I always like to give that disclaimer that I use these terms anyhow. You understand.
Yeah.
So now I completely like got myself off onto my disclaimer.
That's
Uh,
okay.
oh,
About
so
protecting your creative
yeah,
time. And
going through different like phases of the day. If I'm in mom mode and something pops into my head and I'm like, ooh, this is perfect for whatever this thing is that I'm working on. There are times of the day where I can feel like, oh, I'm going to make a note of that and I'll come back to it. And there are times of the day where everything inside of me is like, I must create right now. So it's really interesting that you say that, because I'm only honestly like just now recognizing that I need to be a lot more intentional about protecting my like energetic creativity, because it's, like it's gonna be okay for me to not necessarily do work between the 9 to 5. This is my life. I get to create it how it fits for me, how it works for me. And so I'm just having to learn how to redraw some boundaries. Maybe it's okay for me to start work later because I love being in mom mode in the morning, and
uh-huh.
then in the 3 o'clock hour, I'm in like turbo businesswoman mode, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And that's so great because, that's another thing that I work with my clients on is like really tuning back into their energy because
Mhm.
as high achievers, they tend to ignore their body symptoms a lot. Like they power through the hunger, the fatigue,
Oh,
even having to go to the bathroom, right? 5 more minutes, five
so
more
guilty.
minutes,
I'm so
right?
guilty. And then I'm like, I'm not even getting anything done because I'm so distracted by how hungry I am or how bad I have to pee right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, like for me, my writing time is morning. And I
Hmm.
like have the most energy, the most focus from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And so like my most important stuff, I have to carve out that time.
Yeah.
And so like networking and meet and greets are much better for me in the late afternoon. Um, but you have to, I think that's part of wise leadership, like knowing your boundaries, knowing yourself and working with your own biorhythms. Because when
Mm.
you're working against that, you are working so much harder than you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm really feeling that recently. And it's not something that I've ever, like it's still kind of like ingrained in my brain that you work from 9 to 5 and, but
Right.
that's just not, that's not real life.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get into entrepreneurship so we don't have to work 9 to 5, right?
Right. Right.
So that we can stop and play with the kids or tend to them.
Yeah.
And we get to make our own rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You know what
Yeah.
I love so much about that is it's making me think of, I was telling you, I was writing down this piece that I had read in the book that I felt like I just wanted to like stand up and cheer as I was reading it. When you
Hmm.
were talking about the idea of like throwing your backpack over the wall and just being like, okay, I'm doing it. But then the next paragraph after, I mean, that is huge in and of itself. And it really does take you just being like, end of story, it's happening, the end. But
Yeah.
right after that, you're talking about how liberating it is to just take ownership over where you are in life and know, um, like, I can blame this person and that boss and this coworker for like, in my situation, we're talking about the 9 to 5 thing. That's what brought this up for me, is that like, I just hated the 9 to 5, but I didn't have anything to blame for it because I liked my boss. I liked the people that I worked with. I liked the physical work I was doing. I was working for a nonprofit doing design and, branding and stuff.
Mhm.
And there was like no more things to point at to be like, this is the problem. And before that, at other jobs, there always was. It was a horrible boss. It was just like crabby people that I didn't want to work with. And, or, I always could find a thing to point at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to a place where I was still feeling like, why am I unhappy with this? Like, I
Yeah.
like these people. I like being here. The only thing I could point at was I don't like a 9 to 5 job.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like the way we have to market this and that and the other thing. Like, marketing just gets, I want it done my way. And when I finally, when I
Yeah.
finally realized, Aimee, you're allowing yourself to be miserable. This is on you. There's nobody else here. This is you choosing to come here every day. That's all it is. Once I finally decided, oh, like, yeah, I need to take ownership over this. Am I going to keep doing this or am I not going to keep doing this? Because obviously the 9 to 5 doesn't work for me. And that's probably okay. This is my life. Like,
Right. Right.
So the amount of liberation that happened, I mean, there was still a certain level of me being like working up the guts to like go to my boss and be like, so here's the thing that I'm doing now, like, you know, but the
Yeah.
liberation, when I read you talking about that, it's so liberating to just take ownership for it.
Mm-hmm.
The doors just like flew open and I realized I get to make this life be whatever I want it to be.
Yeah.
It's so freaking liberating. I just love that so much.
It is. And people are afraid of it because they feel like
Hmm.
it's too big, it's too heavy, it's too much responsibility. It's my fault then. But
Yeah.
it puts the power back in your hands. It's,
Yeah.
oh, if I take ownership of this, then I'm taking control of it and then I can do something about it.
Hmm.
And it
Yep.
gives you the power of choice right back to you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing that rides like right alongside that for me is I've always been somebody who cares way too much about what other people think.
Mhm.
And so taking ownership over this stuff also has meant that I am learning to stop caring so much about what other people think. Because, yeah, if I screwed up, it doesn't matter what you think about it. I know what I think about it. Yeah, I screwed up. I'm going to do it better next time.
Mhm.
I took ownership over it. The emotional attachment to whatever that faux pas was or whatever the thing was that I didn't do that I felt like I should have done, the emotional attachment is like cut exponentially because I'm like, yep, absolutely. Growing opportunity, moving on, you know?
Right, exactly. And I think women especially tend to care what other people think, right? There's a lot of, and I talk about this in the book, like all of the socialization that happens and
Mhm.
conditioning that happens
Yeah.
with gender. And
Hmm.
part of that is, being the good girl. And so
Yeah.
the good girl, you're people pleasing and you're taking care
Mm.
of people and you're not rocking the boat.
Yep.
um and that's a good way to play small. That's a good way to there's
Yeah.
that quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, well-behaved women rarely make history.
Right. Right.
Right, I love that one. And it's that people pleasing too that interferes with the part of finding your voice,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
what I hear you saying is like it's that liberation and ownership that that does help you find your voice and forget about trying to please everyone.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the heart behind this cliche almost that's happening right now, that you are enough, right? Like we see it on coffee mugs, on t-shirts, on like literally it's everywhere. And for a long time I was like, oh my God, we get it. I know, shut up about I'm enough, whatever. It just is like, But this is what's behind that, is finding your voice, taking ownership, knowing that my ideas are worthy of being heard. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when I decided to leave my 9 to 5 job, I remember the shove that I needed to make it happen. I never even considered being an entrepreneur. I never even imagined using that word for myself.
Right.
I'm telling you the truth. I couldn't even spell it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the phone with my sister who had taken the leap into entrepreneurship years before.
Okay.
And she was telling me about Denise Duffield Thomas
Uh-huh.
and how I have to read Get Rich Lucky Bitch. And I was like,
Okay.
Andrea, there is nothing in that book for me. Like, seriously, I'm not a business person. I don't care about money. Like I have this whole thing. She's like, yeah, but you do, like, you keep trying to start your own business and then you scare yourself out of it and you
Mm-hmm.
decide you're not good enough, you're not blah, 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 whatever, whatever. You tell yourself all these stories, but you keep coming back to it. And I just want you to like listen to it. So she convinced me to buy this book that I was completely opposed to. And then I read this book and I was like, oh, maybe maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's okay for me to want a little bit more in life. Maybe it's okay for me to say what I'm thinking. You know, what does it feel like? So I'd started doing these journaling exercises, like just imagine what does it feel like for me to not work this 9 to 5? What might that feel like? And how can I convince myself that I'm worthy of that feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And then what would it take for me to do that? And at the end of the day, all it takes is me to do the work that I'm already doing, but for other people that's not this place.
Right.
That's
Right.
all. That's all.
And you made such a good point there about doing the journaling work, because
Mm-hmm.
that is why I created the workbook. That is
Yep.
why there's so many exercises in the book, because it's that process
Yeah.
of like thinking it through, challenging your old way of being.
Yep.
And when you write, something different happens in your
Yes.
brain. It's
Yep.
different than typing, it's different than speaking. Your brain rewires it in a different way, and
Yeah.
it sticks better when you
Yeah.
write.
Yep.
Um, and you also, when you're writing, everyone's had the thing of writing, and maybe they're writing a stream of consciousness, or maybe they're writing on a prompt, and all of a sudden all these ideas and things start flooding,
Yeah.
because you're tapping into different parts of your brain, and you're bringing things from your subconscious into your
Mm-hmm.
conscious awareness. And it's just such it can be such a transformative experience.
I'm totally with you, Donna. And this is exactly why I've always kind of sort of journaled. But since reading Get Rich Lucky Bitch, it has been therapy for me to journal. It has been completely transformational, especially in my business. Well, okay, listen to this. I say especially in business, but what has happened is that my focus is so much on business and has been for the last few years, just because that's what's in my life.
Yeah.
But everybody that has known me for any expanse of time overlapping that transition has told me you are a different person,
Wow.
because like this is the person that we knew was in there, or
Yeah.
this is like my family has been like, what happened? You're just like
Right.
not shy, you're not like all these things that I used to just like hide behind.
Yeah.
And I attribute, I would say 85% of that to journaling, because I have spent so much time. I'm on journal number 4 this year. I just power through it. And honestly, it took a lot of practice for me to get, even I think the first 2 journals that I started, when I started really journaling, the first 2 journals are like freaking garbage, because I was still writing in a way that was like, what am I going to want my great great grandchildren to read and think about me? You know? And that's what
Right.
those journals were. And then I got so frustrated trying to come up with like, oh, whatever this thing is that I want sealed in a time capsule. And just freaking let it go. And then just started using the F-bomb in there and writing what I really want.
Yeah.
And, just whatever, all of the passion. And then once I broke through that, now I like, there's less F-bombs, but I'm like, I just allow whatever feels good to come flowing out. And I even recommend this to my branding clients now. Like, when we're in this messaging program, some of the very first exercises are a week of journaling prompts, because I feel so strongly that people will tell me, oh, I already know who my audience is. Oh, I already know what the value is that I bring. And I'm like, okay, that's lovely. I still want you to do these journaling prompts, because when you force yourself to sit down and write 10 things, and then when you feel exhausted, write 10 more things. Because when you start to dig and dig and dig in there, then you're just either making stuff up, but then all this creativity starts bubbling up. Exactly. And some doors start to get unlocked that you just have been sitting on or something, It's so helpful. It's so important, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And so many of the people that I work with that I recommend journaling to, they never do it because they feel intimidated and they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And that's why, I call it a workbook. You could call it a workbook, a journal.
Yeah.
There's a prompt on each page for what to do to help you get going. Yep. Right. Because especially, I think the high achievers, a lot of them are really analytically brained. And they're like, I don't know where to start. And they avoid it. And having those prompts, I hope will, and I know it will help them get started on that journey, help transform the thinking, help process things. And you can read books all day long, but if you don't take the action steps, if you don't find a way to live it, then the information just stays in your head.
Yeah.
That's what you did with Denise's book, was you found a way to live it. You did the exercises. And that's why I created this complete system. Right. Because I didn't want people to just read it and put it on their shelf. Like, I want to create those wise leaders.
Yeah.
And I just think the world is a better place when people are living out their purpose, their passion. They're not holding back because they're afraid of their own voice, or, like I talk about in the first chapter in Claim Your Leadership, like they're waiting for someone to tell them they're a leader, to bestow it upon them. And you just have to claim it. You just have to decide that you are.
Yeah, it's so true. That decision is always the game changer. And I just commented on somebody's LinkedIn post like last week about this. I have a connection who I think I've met in real life a couple of times, but regardless, she is a author coach in Dallas-ish area. Anyhow, she made a post about sometimes people will come to her and be like, okay, I want to hire you to be my author coach. But then when they start talking, it kind of sounds like, do you want to write a book? Or do you just like feel like you should write a book? Or like, do you want this or do you not want this? Like, they haven't made that decision. So her point was, have you decided or not? Because if you haven't really decided to write a book, that's a huge undertaking. Donna, you could attest to that. Yes. So if you're on the fence, it's probably not going to happen. Come back to me when you have decided. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting, because I feel the same way about my clients, is like, have you really committed to this? Often I love working with entrepreneurs and small business owners. And sometimes for certain entrepreneurs, they come to me and they're like, I'm ready for like to rebrand this. I'm totally pumped about this business growth I've had. And then when we start to get in it, they're like, I mean, I sometimes offer this thing. And then I kind of, sometimes people want me to, and I'm like, okay, is that the service that you offer, or is it not the service that you offer? Is that the way you serve your clients, or no? Is this what you love? Or like, you have to, I can't decide for you. You have to decide. And that decision is in any circumstance, when we are creating something or thinking critically about something, that decision has to be made, or we're never going to feel great about the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And people who are in that position, instead of claiming their leadership, they're giving their clients all the power to say what they provide, what they serve, right? It's
Yeah.
they're not making the decision. They're giving that power over instead of
Yeah.
creating the business that they want.
Yep. And I've totally been there. I mean, and I assume that a lot of entrepreneurs are when they first start. Um, and I mean, I would totally just take literally any job that somebody was like, "Oh, do you do this?" And I'd be like, "Yes." Let me Google how real quick.
Right? You're like, will you pay me for it?
Yeah. Is that with dollars or then yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to make sure we talk about tonight, Aimee, because while the book does talk a lot about, about career and business,
Yeah.
I really mean this book for every woman. And there's a whole chapter on wise leadership in your home and what that
Yeah.
looks like. And as someone with young kids who's running a business and everybody's home right now, I'd love to hear your thoughts about being a wise leader in the home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about the babysitter situation. That was a step I had to take. And I say my husband is a great teammate and I am super thankful for him. I do not know how you could be a parent and step into entrepreneurship, especially like in our situation, I was carrying all of our benefits and everything. Like, so for me to step away from that and be like, this is a thing we're doing, like he has been amazing. He's an awesome, awesome teammate, and I'm so thankful for that. But I will share with you a pat on my back that I had when pandemic started. We were both working from home anyways. I was already, a business owner working from home, and he had recently-ish taken a position with a new company that allowed him to work from home. So we wrapped up 2019 that way, working from home, sharing an office, being like, hey, buddy, this is great, having lunch together and everything. Meanwhile, Maddie was at school, Corinne was doing the daycare grandma thing. So we were like rocking and rolling in our work.
Yeah.
And then then pandemic happened. We're like, oh, okay, now there's children here. And so we were doing this thing where like I'd work in the morning while he was on kid duty, and then we'd flip flop. And, we were like, okay, we got into this system. It's crazy. We were both staying up way too late trying to, get in the rest of the hours. And then he was approached with a really great opportunity for yet a new company, that it was just like, you kind of have to do this. Like, this is sort of like your dream, and we like you have to do this. But it means he's no longer at home. So my childcare buddy was leaving. And so that was a situation, like I had never really felt like I needed to look him in the eyeballs and be like, this needs to happen. Because it's just always been like very conversational. He's such a good teammate, but when we decided together that he was going to take this job. And that was the moment that I felt like, I'm looking you in your eyeballs and I'm telling you, I'm happy for you to take this job, but I will start to resent you if I don't have some help with these children, because I will be here by myself trying to do the best I can for my clients, trying to do my own marketing, trying to be the best mother possible, and trying to give these kids like attention and love and food and potty breaks. I can't do all that. Like, if you're going to do this, then that means you are negotiating for a salary high enough for us to hire a babysitter, because that's where we're at right now. And he was like, okay, wonderful. We hired the babysitter, and it felt like, oh, I don't know that I would have said that a couple years ago. I think I would have struggled through it for a little while, and then allowed potentially clients to fall through the cracks and me to miss them. And that's not to say that I haven't had to send a couple emails being like, thank you for your patience with me, making it happen over here. Like, that happens. However, it does feel good to know I have teammates around me that are supportive and help me be the leader that I need to be. And the experience of practicing that at home, not that home is practice, but practicing that in every aspect of my life builds my confidence and showing up that way as a wise leader with my clients. And take sometimes when I have to take a deep breath and be like, I have to say this thing because it's in your best interest and it might not be what you want to hear, but this is the conversation we have to have right now. And that's just what it is. And then I relay that back to, okay, if I'm strong enough to do that in work, how can I do that at home? And you and I were talking before we went live about one of those areas that I spend a lot of, mom brain power on is, how do I teach my girls to be wise leaders? Like, they are in such malleable form right now, being 7 and 4,
Yeah.
that my example matters. Like, the way I show up in my work, the way I show up for them matters because I'm training them how you're supposed to show up, you know? And so I want them to see me having difficult conversations with people when it's something that I believe in. Recently, we've got lots going on the TV, we've got lots going on in society. We have a neighbor that views things very differently than we do. And she has given us the opportunity to see that people are more than any one thing about them. She is darling with the girls. She brings them little presents. She is the neighborhood watch. She keeps me updated on everybody doing everything. Um, and she, anyhow, I had to have a conversation that, I don't want her saying certain things around my kids, about her opinion about what's happening in the news and everything. And so I finally got to say how I felt. And I got to say, you know what? There's some really difficult things that are happening, and it's not okay. For instance, the thing that I had to say to her was, it's not okay for Black men to be killed just because they're Black. That's never okay.
Okay.
And her response to me was alarming to me. And I have children playing over here. Well, what if they're mouthing off to the cops? And I said, I do not care about that. I don't care, because mouthing off never should result in being killed. That's just, and so for like, those are moments, my hair is standing up because I am not a confrontational person.
Yeah.
And those are moments that in my life, I say, Aimee, now is when you be a wise leader. In every moment, in every conversation, what are you about? And how are you going to be about it? The same with my kids, like the way for instance, today, I did not feel like a wise leader as a mother. I kind of dropped the ball a little bit and got super sidetracked with work. And my sweet babies were like, Mom, you said you were almost done. Come on. And it was another one of these things that, like, to me, that holds the same weight as me looking at a client and being like, hey, we have to talk about this. We need to do this a little differently because you told me this is where you want to go with your brand. This is a little out of alignment. Like, to me, my child looking at me and being like, hey, Mom, what's going on? You said you were done.
Right.
I'm looking at my, they don't read time, but
Right.
they can feel it in their body. It's been more than a second, and you said a second. I just have to choose every day, in every moment, in every conversation. How do I be a wise leader? How do I be the person I want to be? How do I take ownership of where we are? Exactly what you're saying in the book. How do I take ownership of this? And then how do I do my best to show my kids it's okay to goof up and get it wrong. It's also okay to take ownership and say, I could have done that better, and I'm going to keep working on this.
Yeah. And I think that, wise leadership is not always easy, right? And it can be scary and it stretches your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm, a mom of 2 girls as well. And I think about it all the time, the example I'm setting for them. And I want them to be wise leaders. And I see, as teenagers, they're 13 and 15, and I'm watching them become wise leaders. And it's amazing to see them have strong opinions, to be comfortable voicing them, to be willing to challenge other people, just like in the way you did. and it's really a beautiful thing. And I just think if they didn't have the example of a
Of
strong
course.
woman in the house, they wouldn't be able to do these things. And it's, we do it not just for ourselves, right? Because that's
Yeah.
wise leadership. You're thinking leadership is about thinking about others, right? And your
Yeah.
influence on others and how you can contribute.
Yep.
And so I think parenting, in my opinion, is the most important job in the world.
Yeah.
So being a wise leader at home, I think it's important to be a wise leader everywhere you go, but I think everything starts at home. And
Yeah.
so, if you're a woman who is not, you're not in a career, right? You're staying home, you're raising your kids. That's a job, and that's just as important.
Yes.
And so, I never want to minimize that because
Right.
it's a hard job. And when my kids were little and I worked part-time and out of the home and I worked 3 days a week, the days that I stayed home with the girls, I was way more exhausted than the days I went to work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
so true. I appreciate that so much, Donna. It's so true. And so convicting. Like, again, this goes all the way back to the very beginning of this conversation, talking about drawing boundaries, you know? And sometimes for really ambitious people, we forget that, like, there's a balance between ambition and leadership. Like,
yeah.
leadership doesn't just serve the ambition, it
Mhm.
serves every aspect of our lives. And for the example of my shortcomings today, um my ambition took over this morning,
Mhm.
and I woke up early to get some stuff done, and what I meant to have done at 8 a.m. lasted till 1 p.m. today, Donna,
Oh,
because I did not draw my boundaries at
yeah.
all. Or
Yeah.
I had like penciled them in and then just like
Right.
bulldozed right over them. And
Mhm.
my babies were like playing with each other. And then I'd be like, well, it's okay. You come color by me and we'll be together. And mom's still working, but it's okay because you just come color by me. But like, that's ambitious, but that's not wise leadership.
Mm.
And sometimes, do you find that happening with your clients?
Oh yeah, yeah. So something I've been talking about a lot lately was I've um, I've seen these common characteristics among high achievers, and I've come up with the term high achiever syndrome.
Yes. Yeah.
And these are characteristics that have made us very successful, but when they get to the extreme, then they're a detriment. And
Yeah.
part of how I describe it is like I see like a Roman chariot, right? And your ambition is the horse and you're in the chariot, but sometimes the horse gets in the chariot and you're pulling the horse, and that's when your ambition takes over. That's when it gets too extreme, and that's when we see like imposter syndrome and burnout and high functioning anxiety,
Yeah.
people getting divorced or being disconnected from their kids because work has taken on
Yeah.
such a priority. And
Yeah.
certainly not that that's what happened today, but I think as high achievers, we can all do it. I know that I've burnt out before from taking on too much because
Hmm.
you get excited and passionate and you want to do everything and you
Yep.
don't accept your limits. And I think wise leadership does include like setting boundaries, accepting your limits, having good self care,
Yeah.
um,
And you know what?
apologizing,
Yeah.
things like
And
that.
there's so much freedom in all of those things too. Like in the weeks where I feel like I've drawn my boundaries and I'm sticking to them. When I like it takes me looking my husband in his eyes and being like, this is the week. Drawing boundaries. I will not work when I'm on kid duty. Like those kids are going to see my eyeballs. They're
Yeah.
going to know I'm chasing them in the yard. We're playing whatever heck game they want to play, doll babies, Barbies, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like I am invested.
Yeah.
And those are the weeks where I feel like I am rocking and rolling, even in business. Things fall into place. I
Mhm.
get my work done. I have my list. Okay, today, this is what it is. And then as soon as I'm on mom duty, I'm closing the computer, I'm walking away. And
Yeah.
those are the weeks where I walk away being like, awesome. I feel great about business. I feel great about my kids, tucking them in and they're smiling because we had so much fun together,
Yeah.
and so I guess it just feels like there is a balance. And when you honor those boundaries, that's wise leadership.
Yeah.
When you put the ambition away, that can be wise leadership. When
Hmm.
you roll in the mud with the kids, wise leadership.
Right, right. And it's
Yeah.
like, even though principle 2 is unleash your ambition, it's not about burning yourself out. It's not about neglecting the rest of your
Yeah.
life. It's just about allowing yourself to dream as big as you want to dream and
Yeah.
then doing something about it, not letting
Yeah.
it just stay. I wanted to write a book probably all my life, right?
Yeah.
When I was a little girl, I wrote stories about Jimmy and his puppy, right?
Oh,
I
I love
wrote
it. Yeah.
a series of stories. And so I've always been writing. I did publish a children's book a few years ago, but I knew that I was going to write like a real book.
Yeah.
um, and I still think I'll write more, but it could very well have just stayed like that thing that I want to do someday.
Yeah.
And, I'll get to it. And actually, I mean, some things popped up in my life that kind of pushed me,
Yeah.
which I needed. I held my feet to the fire a little bit to get this done because I work better with deadlines and,
Sure.
that kind of thing. But, that could have just stayed a dream forever. And watching it come together as my husband and I were, putting the cover together and putting the final pieces on it and seeing it all come together and watching it uploaded to Amazon and all of these things. Um, I don't even have the words for it, honestly. It was just like, holy cow,
Yeah.
this is real.
Mm-hmm.
And for it to be this full system, just like Gabby Bernstein, right? Like
Yeah.
having the book and the journal and the card deck and the audio album with the meditations and hypnosis and visualizations. Like it is a complete system and it's truly intended for transformation.
Yeah.
And it's just something I can feel really proud of, the quality of it. And the exercises in it, that it's not just a book, but
Yeah.
there's a process here, right? That is based in science and based in psychology and based in decades of transformational work that I've done myself and with
Right.
my clients. Um, I just know how powerful it can be for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so great because when you have the whole like immersive experience like that, it is easy to like read a book at night and then you're like dozing off and you're like, yeah, I think I finished chapter 2. But,
Right.
but it's a whole different experience if you're like, okay, now there's a journaling prompt, so I better go back and make sure that I really understand what it is that I'm writing about. It really brings it in. And then the card deck, I love the card deck so much because I actually do have Gabby Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back card deck. And you can find there's one like tucked in the little visor flap in my van, and there's like the bathroom mirror and the kitchen little thingy, and they're all over the place because it really is such a great reminder to bring you back, like stick them in the areas where you find yourself slipping out of wise leadership. So if it happens while you're washing the dishes, stick it in the kitchen window. If it happens when you're sitting at your desk feeling frustrated, stick it right next to your computer screen or something. Like where it's just a whole immersive system to consistently remind you, this is a new way of thinking about myself. This is a new way of taking this next step. And when you give yourself the opportunity to have all those reminders and doing the practice of the journaling that's so intentional, it just bakes it in and it's a practice. Like it becomes normal. It becomes how
Yeah.
you operate when you commit to doing all the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
love that so much.
It really is. I mean, one, by immersing yourself, you're truly rewiring your brain. Like different neurons are firing, and the consistency of that repetition, you start to create new superhighways in your brain. So
Yeah.
those negative automatic thoughts that were there, you start interrupting them. And I think of
Mhm.
it, so I think of it like our regular thoughts are like a trench in the brain, and
Okay.
start rewiring, it's like you're digging a new trench and filling that one up. So
Oh,
that is the visual that I get for that, and that's what you're doing. So with that consistency and that repetition, you start filling that trench up and creating a new one that's more positive, and you're going to start having automatic thoughts that are productive and, helpful to you rather than the negativity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so true. When I decided, um, when I was working at my last 9 to 5, I've always like tried to be a positive person. And then adulthood just kind of like happened.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I remember, anyways, I won't tell that story. My husband might not be happy about that. I didn't ask him first. I'll tell you anyways. He, he was still in college when we got married.
Hmm.
And, um, I have always been like a self-doubter, like always, like we're saying many women are.
Hmm.
And one time, I don't even remember what his class was. He left a notebook out on the table, and I was all like, oh God, he never cleans up after himself, that whole thing. And I picked up this book and I realized, like, looking at what was written on there, I realized like he was like writing an essay or something about me and saying that, like, my wife is the kindest person that I've ever met. She's so positive. She always has something kind to say and like an optimistic outlook. And I thought, does he see that in me? Because I don't feel that way. Like, how lovely. It was such an encouragement to
Yeah,
me.
how
And
beautiful.
that pops up in my head from time to time when I have felt myself being like crabby and just like, you kind of accidentally slip into these waves of like, I've been negative this month. Anyways, so when I was getting ready, I was hashing out with myself, taking ownership over where I was at my last 9 to 5. And
Yeah.
I was getting really snarky at a lot of people for no reason because I was trying to find somebody to point at.
Yeah.
And I started deciding I'm going to be more positive. And I didn't know the term positive psychology. I didn't know about the rewiring. I just decided when you practice something, you get better at it. And I'm going to practice being more positive. And so I remember when people would you work with a lot of people, they kind of eat lunch together and get gossipy or whatever. I made it a priority to be like, I'll talk to you guys later, but I don't really want to have this conversation right now. And I
Yeah.
would just be like, I'm going to leave now. Like, remove my body from the situation. Literally, anytime somebody was starting to get negative about something, like, I'm so sorry. I'm really practicing being positive, and this is making me feel feelings that I don't want to feel. So I'm not going to participate. And I would just walk away. People would be like, Amy's turning into some voodoo witch or something. Like,
I love it though. Gossip is so poisonous.
it
It's
is.
really negative. It's very poisonous, and it's often to the detriment of women, because it's
Yeah.
often gossip about women behind their backs, and
Mhm.
really opposite, of that principle of lifting each other up. And
Yeah.
sometimes I still think, back to like first grade, if you can't say something nice,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
say it at all.
And you know what I love about that, Donna, is going back, there's a quote, I think in chapter 1 that you use, and I don't even remember this woman's name, but she was talking about like when you be this person that you know you're meant to be, it shines light on everybody else and
Mhm.
gives them like permission to do the same. And
Yeah.
so I had somebody come to me, she's now a dear friend of mine. She and I worked together at this 9 to 5 job I was at. And she told me recently, I haven't seen her in a while. She said, I really miss having you in my life. You are somebody who really encouraged me to be more positive because you were so intentional about training your attention and only focusing on the good stuff. And I did that. That transformation happened like right in front of her eyeballs. And she is the one that called me a voodoo witch. I love her dearly, but it meant so much to me that like my struggling to become that new version of myself in front of her gave her the permission to be like, I'm going to try to keep my focus on the good too, you know? And it's really true that that wise leadership, as awkward as it feels sometimes, especially when you're just learning it, it matters. And it doesn't just matter to you and your kids, it matters to every freaking person around you because they're seeing it. And whether or not you're ever going to see them again for them to say that to you, it's leaking out on everybody. And it's shining light that says it's okay for you to say something that feels uncomfortable when it comes from in your soul and you know it needs to be said for whatever reason, whether it's political, whether it's personal, self-empowering, whatever it is. That wise leadership is contagious too. And this is how you change the world, Donna, is,
Thank you.
you know, like putting this bug in people's ear and saying, okay, now you try. Now you go do this thing. Because the ripple effects of that, like, this is what we need, especially now, right? I mean, especially in this day and age. We need these people to say, these women, we need women to say, we get to be heard. We, RBG folks, women need to be in all the places where choices are being made.
Yes,
Like, you
absolutely.
know, this is what we need right now. And this, Donna, RBG is so important to you. I've learned following you and everything.
Yeah.
Like, this is the way you pick up her torch. Like, you personally, Donna Marino, are picking up the RBG torch and saying, we will keep carrying this for you. You're not here to lead the way. We are going to be the wise leaders. We are going to do this now. It's goosebumps again. Love it so much, Donna. I'm so excited to know you, and I'm so excited to get to have this conversation with you. Just thrilled for you that this book and the whole system is happening. And I can't wait to see how this changes our communities and the way people are thinking about themselves and being willing to take ownership over where they are and choose again. To Gabby Bernstein says you always get to choose again.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly. Well, gosh, thank you so much, Aimee. And I have to say, I don't know if the card deck would be here if it wasn't for you, because it was a thought in my mind. And I remember saying it to you, and I'm thinking maybe. And you were like, a card deck. Yes, I was thinking that too. And that was like, all right, it's done then.
I love it.
So yeah, so you're definitely, and for those of you watching, it's Aimee's artwork on the card deck. They're so gorgeous. I can't wait to get them into everybody's hands.
So exciting.
So if you want to find Aimee, she is at Soul Brand Design. She's also on Facebook and LinkedIn, and she is just recently launching a momentum marketing course for you to really learn how to market your business if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And we will put all the links below. And if you have not gotten your copy of Unleash the Wise Leader in You, please go out and get that on Amazon. You can get the book and the workbook there. When you get them, I'd love for you to write a nice review if you love it. And the album and the card deck can be bought on my website, drdonnamarino.com.
Awesome.
So,
I can't wait to get my card deck, Donna. I'm totally going to go buy it right now. I can't wait.
Yeah, wait till you see it. It's so beautiful. And yes, there's a nice credit to Aimee on there.
No, that's so sweet. That's very sweet. You did not have to do that.
Yeah, no, I love to. And that's part of that, lifting each other up and shining that light, because, when one woman wins, we all win. And it's about really, really lifting each other up together.
Yep.
So
I love that. Well, Donna, excuse me while I cough. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your book tour. I was so excited when I got that email. I feel like you like hit send and I was like, yes. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it really means a lot to me. I have just appreciated getting to know you, getting to know your heart and the big work that you're doing. So important. And I thank you so much for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Bye, everybody.